you guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Maria. If you watch this video and you enjoy it, don't be shy, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for any future videos on narcissistic abuse recovery and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Today I have a video for you on bullying and why it is considered emotional abuse. Okay, you guys, so how exactly is bullying considered emotional abuse? Well, let's look at what is emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is anything that is abuse, but not physical. It might sound a little too basic to be true, but I want you to understand that emotional abuse comes with, and I'll read off some of these things: aggression, verbal threats, manipulation, gaslighting, humiliation, minimizing, belittling, intimidating. Guys, these are all things that happen when you are emotionally abused. Now, how does this relate to bullying? Well, on this channel, normally what I'm speaking on is narcissistic abuse. This is something that I understand firsthand, right? Like I've been through this. Well, I've also been through bullying. And I know that when the brain is developing, when we are children and when we are adolescents, this is where our limiting belief system, our thought process is first coming about. So when is the age that people start getting bullied? Well, usually right about that time. Could be elementary school, it could be middle school, it could be high school. I understand that adults are bullied as well, even in the work environment. But today we are going to talk about what happens to the brain and what happens to our belief system when we are bullied, emotionally abused as children. So when we fear someone, like when we're bullied, this sends a signal to the brain. This is a part of the brain in the limbic system called the amygdala. The amygdala is the part of the brain that hosts our fear response. Actually, it hosts all four of our trauma responses: fight, flight, fear, or fawn. So when we fear something, when that feeling is so intense, when we are being bullied and we're scared to go down a hallway, we're scared to walk home, we're not sure what's going to happen to us, we don't feel safe in our environment, that triggers the amygdala in the brain. When the amygdala is activated, we are now working off of emotion. When we are emotionally regulated, we are now not thinking logically. Does this just go away once we graduate high school? It sure doesn't. This doesn't even go away until we take a look at our core wounds inside and we dive into those feelings that we felt when we were being bullied. Some of these core wounds could be a core wound of abandonment, a wound of shame, a wound of embarrassment. Whatever it is that we felt when we were younger and being bullied, we may have this raw core wound, and we bring that from our adolescence into our adult lives. So when we grow up, when we are people who were bullied at a young age and we grow up, sometimes we develop, and I speak about this all the time, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. C-PTSD comes from long-term emotional abuse. This, like when you're being bullied, is usually long-term, whether we're talking months, maybe years. All right, so we may develop C-PTSD. There are 5 signs of C-PTSD. One of these is toxic shame. So whatever it is that these bullies said about us, whatever it was, that rumors they spread around that caused us to feel shame inside, we took what they said about us, which is, by the way, not really who we are, but we attached it to our identities. So then we believed what they said about us to now be a part of our identity. That is number one symptom of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, toxic shame. Number two, self-abandonment. So we may have felt abandoned. You know, when you don't feel protected, you feel like you're abandoned. You thought somebody should be stepping in, like an adult, like a teacher or a parent, a sibling maybe. When somebody doesn't step in and you feel abandoned, you may create a core wound of abandonment. You then, when you become an adult, you tend to know that feeling of abandonment so well that you self-abandon. So you abandon yourself. You may notice that you're getting into narcissistic relationships and not know why. This is because you may notice that you're people pleasing and not know why. This is because you're putting other people in front of you. You are abandoning yourself. So that's number two. Number three would be social anxiety. You may notice that when you're in a crowd of people, you have a lot of compulsive thoughts. You may feel like you're going into a flight trauma response. You may want to get out of the situation as soon as possible. You may clam up. You may get silent. You may start thinking people don't like you. This is all a part of social anxiety. Yet another sign. So there's the third sign of complex post-traumatic stress disorder caused by emotional abuse, which is bullying. Another sign is emotional flashbacks. So, like I was talking about shame, when you were shamed when you were younger, right? So you're being bullied and you're being shamed. And then now you're a grown adult and someone shames you. Someone asks you to do something with them and you can't do it. You just can't. You're working that day and you're not able to fill in for them. You're not able to volunteer at that thing. But they shame you and they make you feel bad about it. Well, instead of setting boundaries and saying, "Nope, you know what? I'm really sorry, but I just can't." You start internalizing that to think that there is something wrong with you. You screwed up. You start shaming. You start thinking, when did I have that feeling in the past? And it triggers you into what is called an emotional flashback. You feel the same emotion that you felt when you were being bullied, as if you are back in that situation. And this is because you have felt that shame in the past, and now it is coming back to haunt you. So the past now feels like the present, even though you are safe and you're not in that spot. And the fifth sign of complex post-traumatic stress disorder is our best friend, the vicious inner critic. So those thoughts that go on a loop in our brain. I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be in a good relationship. I'm not going to get good grades. I don't think I can go back to college. I'm not smart enough to go to college. I'm never going to get that good job. People don't like me. I can't even make good friends. This on a loop in our brain. Vicious inner critic. So these are thoughts that are coming from an outside source. These are things that were learned when you were being bullied. If somebody didn't say these directly to you, they made you feel as if these words were true. They're now a part of your subconscious mind, and they're going on in a loop in your mind. That is the fifth sign of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Listen, guys, all of this is going on in your adulthood, and it all came from the time in which you were bullied to believe these limiting thoughts. This is emotional abuse. So, what do we do about all this? Well, I would advise you to, of course, seek therapy. Trauma therapy might be great. Being able to talk about those experiences and feeling the feeling in these inner wounds that you're having, and be able to process and move through the emotions. Things like what I do, hiring a life coach that specializes in things like childhood trauma, narcissistic abuse, bullying, somebody who's been through it, has felt the feelings, has, learned tools, and can teach you how to move on. So for your part of this, something that I can suggest that you do is, remember, when you were younger, this wasn't your fault that this happened. So you didn't feel safe. So safety is what was lack. You did not feel safe. So how do we create this feeling of safety within ourselves? Well, because somebody, whether it be your parent, your sibling, your teacher, did not protect you then. Luckily now you're an adult and you are in charge of your own healing journey, right? So we can't go on playing the victim for our whole lives, because this is our life. We need to do the best we can for ourselves. So we are now adults and we are in charge of keeping ourselves safe. We are in charge of being the parent to what is called an inner child. The inner child lives inside of you, and that's where your core wounds are. So they are inside of him or her, living inside of you. When you are healing core wounds, it's really you dealing with that inner child that felt them at that moment. All right, so checking in with your inner child. If you're starting to feel anxious, if you're having those vicious inner critic thoughts, if you're feeling social anxiety, if you're self-abandoning, if you're having an emotional flashback, you ask your inner child, what do you need right now? How can I make you feel safe? To understand what that feels like, think about if you were a child and you were scared, and an adult ducked down next to you and looked you in the eye and said, what do you need right now? How can I make you feel better? What can I get for you? Imagine the level of security that you would feel being that child. The level of safety, and just knowing that there is someone who's an adult that's there for you. You can do that for yourself. In fact, it's necessary to do if you want to heal these inner wounds that you have inside, these wounds of abandonment, shame, embarrassment, everything. You can heal them yourself as being the adult that's now responsible for your own healing journey. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't be shy, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for any future videos on narcissistic abuse recovery and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Take care of yourselves this week. I will see you next Monday morning. And as always, I wish you all the love in the world.